You know what is truly strange about human nature? Some of the most perceptive, deeply emotionally intelligent people you will ever meet in your life did not develop those extraordinary abilities through reading self-help books. They did not learn them in university classrooms, and they certainly did not acquire them through years of peaceful, quiet meditation. Instead, they developed these profound abilities because, at some specific point in their lives, they absolutely had to. Their nervous system was trained, not by choice, but by brutal, unavoidable circumstances. They were placed in environments that required them to read rooms instantly, to predict shifting moods before they happened, and to think several steps ahead of everyone else, simply just to feel safe. Psychologists and researchers have recently started putting a name to this phenomenon. They are calling it traumatic intelligence. And if you have never heard this term before, or if you have always felt like you operate on a completely different frequency than the rest of the world, that is exactly why you need to listen closely to what follows. Here is the foundational psychological premise that changes everything we thought we knew about hardship. Trauma does not only wound people, while it leaves scars. In many cases, it also sharpens them. It hones the human mind into a precision instrument. Research in developmental psychology strongly suggests that children who grow up in unpredictable, chaotic, or emotionally complex environments often develop a massively heightened sensitivity to social cues, emotional patterns, and nonverbal communication. Their brains, specifically the fear center known as the amygdala, and the logic center, the prefrontal cortex, are fundamentally rewired very early on. They are programmed to detect the most subtle, barely noticeable signals that the vast majority of people completely miss. The final result is a rare form of intelligence. It is an intelligence that looks almost entirely invisible from the outside, but runs incredibly deep, and sometimes painfully so, on the inside. There are 10 defining signs that you possess this rare traumatic intelligence. As we go through them, you might finally understand why you are the way you are. The first sign is that you can completely read a room before anyone even speaks a single word. Most people walk into a space and simply look for a place to sit. But when you walk into a space, something inside of you instantly shifts. A quiet, invisible alertness takes over. You do not just enter a room. You download it. You immediately pick up on the hidden tension in someone's shoulders. You notice a fleeting micro-expression of annoyance or sadness that crosses a person's face for a fraction of a second. You hear the slight alteration in the breathing rhythm of the person sitting next to you. You understand the unspoken dynamics between two people standing in the corner. This is not magic. It is not intuition in some mystical, supernatural sense. It is highly advanced pattern recognition. Your brain was heavily trained from an extraordinarily early age to constantly scan your environment for emotional data. Because, at some point in your past, that hypervigilant scanning was exactly what kept you safe from emotional or physical harm. You learned to spot the storm clouds before the rain ever started to fall. The second sign is that you are deeply, almost painfully attuned to other people's needs, very often before they even realize those needs themselves. You are the person who notices when someone is secretly struggling, even when they have a giant smile on their face and insist that they are completely fine. You can sense the microscopic shift in someone's energy before they have even had a chance to cognitively process it themselves. Clinical psychologists refer to this as hyper-empathy. It almost always develops in people who grew up needing to meticulously track the emotional states of unpredictable caregivers, volatile family members, or unstable environments. You had to know if the adults in your life were angry, sad, or dangerous before they even acted on those feelings. You learned to feel others because your specific environment absolutely required it for survival. The heavy burden of this today is that you often carry the emotional weight of everyone around you, simply because you are the only one who can see it. The third sign of traumatic intelligence is that you are an absolutely exceptional problem solver, especially when you are under immense pressure. When everything falls apart around you, when other people start panicking, crying, or shutting down, something very fascinating happens inside of you. You go entirely calm, cool, and highly strategic. You do not freeze. Instead, you instantly adapt. This is your nervous system doing something scientifically incredible. Individuals who experience severe early adversity often develop what trauma researchers describe as stress inoculation. This means their brains are actually better calibrated to manage chaotic, high-stakes situations than the average person. Why? Because high-stakes situations, chaos, and unpredictability were simply your normal. When the world is on fire, you feel a strange sense of familiarity. Your brain says, I know this landscape. I know how to navigate this. You become the anchor in the storm because you were raised in the wind. The fourth sign is that you think deeply, sometimes compulsively, about human behavior. You are entirely unable to take people simply at face value. You endlessly analyze why people do what they do. You replay everyday conversations in your head, searching for the hidden meaning, the real motive behind actions and words that others do not even register. This profound depth of psychological thinking is not random, and it is not just overthinking for the sake of it. It was forged by years and years of desperately trying to understand the unpredictable, confusing, or contradictory behavior of the people who were supposed to protect you. You became a masterful student of human nature because deeply understanding people felt absolutely essential to your basic well-being. You learned that people's words are often a mask, so you trained yourself to exclusively look at their actions, their patterns, and their hidden psychological drives. Now, before we move to the fifth sign, take a moment to really consider everything you have heard so far. The intense perceptiveness, the heavy empathy, the sharply analytical mind. Society often tries to label these traits as anxiety, overthinking, or hypersensitivity. But these are not weaknesses dressed up as strengths. They are genuine, incredibly sophisticated, cognitive and emotional adaptations. They tell a powerful story about how remarkably responsive and brilliant the human brain is when it is forced to adapt to experience. Let's continue, because the remaining signs reveal something even more profound about how traumatic intelligence permanently shapes your very identity. The fifth sign is a highly developed, almost extreme sense of self-reliance. You absolutely do not wait for other people to rescue you. If there is a problem, you build the solutions entirely, independently, and quietly. You rarely ask for help, and when you do, it physically pains you. This extreme self-sufficiency often frustrates or surprises the people who love you, but it makes complete, logical sense from a developmental standpoint. When your childhood environment was not reliably supportive, when the people who were supposed to be there for you dropped the ball, your developing brain learned a harsh lesson. It learned to completely internalize resourcefulness. Your subconscious decided that dependence was far too risky. Relying on others meant opening yourself up to disappointment, abandonment, or betrayal. So supreme competence and fierce independence became your default setting. You became your own savior because no one else was coming to save you. The sixth sign is an undeniable reality for those with this intelligence. You feel things with a level of intensity that the people around you simply cannot comprehend. When you listen to music, it hits you differently. It moves through your bones. When you witness an injustice, even a minor one, it bothers you on a deeply visceral, physical level. A simple, random, kind gesture from a stranger can genuinely move you to tears. This profound emotional depth is a core hallmark of traumatic intelligence. Your amygdala, the part of the brain that processes all emotional experience, became highly, permanently sensitized through repeated emotional activation in your early life. Because of this, you do not just observe the world like a passive bystander. You feel the world. You experience life at an emotional frequency and volume that most people simply do not have access to. It is beautiful, but it is also incredibly exhausting. The seventh sign is that you strongly struggle to trust people easily, but when you finally do trust someone, it is profound and fiercely loyal. Your baseline threshold for trust is simply much higher than the average person's. People might call you guarded, distant, or closed off, but this is not blind cynicism. It is a highly calibrated, intelligent response to past evidence. Cognitive psychologists call this trait adaptive skepticism. Your brain learned very early on that not all smiles are friendly, and not all signals of safety are genuine. So it built advanced filtration systems. You test people, you observe their consistency over time, and you wait to see what they do when things get hard. While these filters can sometimes feel isolating, they serve a beautiful purpose. They guarantee that the connections you actually do form, the people you finally let into your inner circle, tend to be incredibly honest, deeply meaningful, and unusually resilient. The eighth sign is your incredibly complex, often agonizing relationship with rest and stillness. For you, slowing down can actually feel incredibly uncomfortable, and sometimes entirely unsafe. When the house is quiet, when there are no problems to solve, when you finally try to relax on a Sunday afternoon, your mind begins to race. It tends to wander inward, and it does not always do so gently. This is your nervous system doing exactly what it was conditioned to do for years. Stay alert. Keep watch. Look for the next threat. Your brain associates peace with the calm before the storm. The terrible irony here is that the very intelligence that trauma built now requires massive, active, conscious effort to unwind. For someone with traumatic intelligence, learning to truly rest is not a vacation. It is a rigorous practice. It is a daily act of reclaiming your life. It is the brave act of repeatedly telling your brain that the war is over and the threat has finally passed. The ninth sign is your distinct lack of tolerance for superficiality. You have absolutely no energy or patience for small talk, fake pleasantries, or shallow relationships. Because your brain has spent a lifetime analyzing deep motives and surviving real emotional complexities, talking about the weather or engaging in meaningless office gossip feels almost physically painful to you. You crave depth. You want to know what keeps people up at night. You want to understand their fears, their passions, and their genuine truths. You would rather sit in total silence with someone real than spend a single hour in a crowded room full of people wearing masks. Traumatic intelligence strips away the desire for the artificial, leaving you with an intense hunger for nothing but absolute authenticity. And finally, the 10th sign, which is perhaps the most defining and powerful one of all, is that you carry a quiet but entirely unshakable sense of meaning. You simply do not move through life casually. You have looked very closely at the dark side of life. You have experienced deep pain, both your own and the pain of others. And something fierce inside of you has absolutely refused to let that pain be meaningless. Extensive psychological research on a concept called post-traumatic growth, studied by renowned experts like Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun, suggests something beautiful. It shows that a significant portion of people who navigate severe adversity eventually emerge with a much deeper, sharper philosophical clarity about what actually matters in life. You do not care about petty arguments or trivial status symbols. You care about connection, truth, and helping others navigate the dark. You are, in so many ways, someone who learned profound, life-altering wisdom decades earlier than most people ever will. If you have recognized yourself in these signs, here is what is absolutely vital for you to sit with today. Traumatic intelligence is not something we should ever romanticize or celebrate at the expense of acknowledging the immense difficulty, pain, and unfairness that created it. The sharpness you possess is very real, but so was the terrible cost of acquiring it. You did not deserve the things that forced you to become this strong. However, what modern psychology desperately invites us to understand is a message of profound hope. The human brain is not simply damaged or permanently broken by hardship. It is also, in very specific, highly measurable, and undeniable ways, transformed by it. The incredible perceptiveness you carry into every room, the deep, healing empathy you extend to strangers, the brilliant way you can analyze and navigate a chaotic world. These are not random coincidences. They are not character flaws. They are the magnificent architecture of a mind that had to grow up far too quickly, and, against all odds, successfully did. The question you face now is no longer about how you got here. You cannot change the fire that forged you. The only question that matters now is what you will deliberately choose to do with the brilliant, rare, and powerful intelligence you built along the way.